Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you're precious and learn to trust. Amen. Good morning. If you're a guest at St. John's, welcome. We're glad you're here today. And for all of you who ventured out on this kind of warm but rainy morning, good morning to all of you. And a welcome to Steve and Sheila Sexton. Steve has been with our young adult and young parents group doing some family systems work. So I'm glad he's with us this morning. You know, we all have moments in life when we get it. We just finally get it. Maybe the it has been around you, in front of you for some length of time, but then you just get it. And I had one of those moments at St. John's years ago, right in the back of the church. It was a little earlier than this. In fact, it was about 7:45, right before early church. And if you think it's sleepy now, you ought to try 7:45 in this space, first thing in the morning. It was quiet and sleepy, and it was in the springtime, and it was a day like this. And I was back greeting folks, and then one of our moms came in with her little boys. And again, it was about 7:45, and they kind of trailed her in, and they looked like they were still asleep. It was wonderful. I can still see it. She comes in, gets her order of service, and they come in kind of trailing her, and they are a mess. They are a mess. Their clothes don't match. One of them, I think, is still in PJs. And I'm just watching going, this is wonderful. And they both kind of sleepyhead, you know, that bed hair, they got their bed hair. They go over and get the little books we have out, the little thing where you crayons and all that stuff. Again, if you're bored, by the way, they are back there if you don't want to listen, you know that. But they got those out, so I watch them go up the aisle, and I'm just thinking. And then I look at the oldest one, and I look down, and he's got on the most mishmash outfit you've ever seen, and he's got on cowboy boots, but they're not the same color. One's brown, one black. I love it. And they go like this. They're on the wrong feet. It was fabulous. Golly, it was just wonderful. And they were happy, and they were kind of smiling even though they were half asleep. The mom was happy, made me feel happy. And I thought, how cool is that she can let them come to church this way? Gosh. And then I got it. Oh, man, it hit me. And I want you to know that image comes to me often. It is one of the most vivid images in my life. I think about it often. Because it was a challenge to me, a really strong one. She could just let her little boys come to church the way they were. It was perfectly fine. She didn't worry how they're dressed. She didn't worry about what people thought. And I do. And I went, great Scott, what kind of love and acceptance is there? What is this? And that's why that memory is still with me, vivid and clear. And you know, I know one thing, those boys, they don't remember that morning. That morning came and went. But the love and acceptance did not come and go. It stayed with them, helped guide and shape them as they grew and grown into life. You see, that morning, actually what I saw was a picture of God. Really clear, really vivid. That God, loves and accepts us in the same way, and shapes and forms us in the same way. And most of the time, you see, we don't know it either. We really don't know it. I know you think you do. You really don't know it. Just like Abraham didn't know it. Here in Lent, we have a seminal story, bedrock, central story to Judaism and to Christianity. I've been messing with this story for 3 weeks. The staff, clergy, we've had fun talking about it. We've knocked around Bible studies. I just get more and more ideas as I go along. You see, this story, the one we have this morning, there's some stuff that comes before it. You remember it? Abram at this point has had a lot of ups and downs. His life has been a major league roller coaster. You think your life's a roller coaster? Match up with Abram. He starts out, when we meet him, he's living in modern day Iraq. He gets his spiritual notion he's supposed to move. And the move is from Iraq to the Holy Land. And today that would be dicey, and his time is almost impossible, arduous, dangerous. And he does it, and somehow he succeeds. He makes it. But as soon as he settles and begins to make progress, the roller coaster starts down again. They are invaded by an army. People are subjugated again. His brother Lot is taken off in captivity. He is stolen by these people. He has to muster an army to go after them to get his brother back, and he does, and against impossible odds defeats them and gets Lot and returns home. Settles back down. Well, now maybe life will be okay. Starts again, rebuilding. Things are going okay. He starts really kind of building some wealth. Lots of camels, lots of donkeys, all that kind of business. What happens? A famine comes. And again, the roller coaster starts down. He has to pick his family up and move to Egypt in order to survive, in order to find food. He cannot feed his family. He becomes a refugee in a foreign land. And when things look like it all will fall away, where literally all of his dreams will be dashed and he will die in a foreign land, no less than Pharaoh comes and befriends him. And he moves back home. And when he does this time, he returns for good, builds a life of stability and wealth. Whew, I don't know about you, I'm already tired. We just did chapters 12, 13, and 14 of Genesis, if you're keeping score. And every bit of that gets us to today's installment. You see, it doesn't make sense. The story today makes no sense without that. And now we get to today. God comes to Abram, says in a vision, dream, awake dream, a thought, emotion, something hits him. He goes out with God and says, look up at the stars. And then he gets this great promise. I will be your shield and defender. I will be your shield and defender. Your promise throughout your life, and not only yours, but your children's lives, and every generation to come. Get the point? I kept missing it. The point is that Abram doesn't get the point. He's been missing it all along. You see, it has been God who is helping him from one challenge to the next, one crisis to the next, one heartbreak to the next, one roller coaster up, one roller coaster down, ride to the next. It is if God in Abram, right here, the father, no less, of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, does not get it. And you think you do. And I think I do. I hope you feel better. We don't get it. He doesn't get it. At some deep level. It is like he's unaware of God's influence on the things that are happening to him. It's kind of like he's been going it alone. And the story is very clear. He has not been going it alone at all, whether he knew it or not. There's only one thing missing, it seems, and it's added in today's story. The story becomes complete. Abram's life becomes complete because we know it, don't we? He goes from being called Abram to, how do we know him? Abraham. You see, he is now complete. He is complete because he recognizes that God is in his life. God is in his life. God is really in his life. That little bit of yes, that little bit of trust that he oozes out, because even at the last minute, he's still kind of shaking his head, but at the last point, he can get it. I have an old story for you that every one of you have heard. So you've heard all these versions. I'm going to tell you the actual original real version. Okay, you ready? So a professor really did this in a time management class. He came in and he had a great big glass 2-gallon vessel. And so he comes in and he starts filling it. He says, I've got a little object lesson with rocks. Puts them in. Kind of fills it up, gets up to the top. And he asks the class, is it full? The entire class shouts out, it's full. So he says, okay, well, let me try this. He comes in with kind of some ground up stuff and starts pouring it in. A little bucket of gravel. Fills it up. to the top again. Is it full? Now about half the class says it's full. He says, okay, well, let me try something else. He pulls out another bucket, this time sand. He starts pouring the sand in. He gets it up to the top. Is it full? With a little less kind of confidence, a little kind of, yeah, it's full. He said, okay. He brings the pitcher of water. He pours it in to the top. He says, now is it full? Nobody dares answer at this point. Dead quiet. One student raised his hand. He said, Professor, I get what you're teaching us here in time management. No matter how full our glass jar is, there's always room for something else. He said, well, you know, that is a great idea, but that's not quite what I had in mind. That's really excellent. But I had another idea in mind. It goes something like this. You know, think about what I did. If you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never get them in. That's the real story. If you don't put the big rocks in life into your jar, and you know who's responsible for the jar? You are. Every one of you is responsible for your own jar. I'm not responsible for your jar. You are not responsible for my jar. I know, moms, you're not responsible for your children's jar. They are. It's our job to help them. Learn to put the big rocks, the important rocks, in first before it does fill up too much. You see, I wonder if that's simply what Abram did like the rest of us. He missed what the big rocks were in life, and one of them was clearly this business that God was at work in his life. It's really not to feel bad about it. It's just an is. Kind of let's get over it. That's how we are. If the father of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is this way, you think you're different? No. This is how we are. That's what the story's telling us. This is your story. This is my story. This is our story. But can it be different? Yeah, it can. And each one of us has to figure that piece out. That's the intriguing part. You've got some work to do. I know for me, I have to slow down because I go a mile a minute. I have to be quiet. I talk a mile a minute. I have to think, not problem solve. I problem solve constantly. I have to pay attention. That's for me. That's what I have to do. And when I do, I see God at work. You know, last Sunday, I wasn't here. Yay. No, I'm sorry. Actually, right now, I was thinking about you guys because I was sitting in a rocker holding a baby against my chest, letting parents sleep. Had the New York Times, not that I was reading, I was kind of dozing. 3 or 4 hours of doing nothing except listen to this little breath against my chest. I got it. God was fabulously there. God is really with us. You know, last week I was thinking about a good friend of mine who is facing really tough stuff ahead. Cancer and the treatment that's coming. And I've watched her navigate this with a courage, a gentleness, a stability that I can't fathom. I can't fathom it. And the people around her can't. And I got it. God really is there for her. God really is there for us. Or, you know, I got dressed up at a fancy party. We were dancing in the middle of loud. You couldn't hear anything. And had somebody walk up. And he's usually kind of one of my friends who's kind of a acerbic and kind of a smarty. And came up and out of the blue at this party says to me, do you know I missed Jerry Askew's ordination? And I'm thinking, we're at a party. But okay, yeah. And he goes, you know, he is the greatest guy. I can't imagine. What's he doing? He's going to be a deacon. And he's willing to give up weekends to do this for the church. And I looked at this guy. I swear to you, he had tears in his eyes. And then I got it. I got it. God really was there. In one of this fancy party. And last week, the exposure group, the Wednesday night group, heard about someone from Missouri, lost their house in the flood, cat's, dog, you know, everything goes with the flood, and started raising money. And there's this wealth of generosity from a small group of people for someone they do not know. Honest to goodness, don't know the person. And I got it again. God is right there. God really is really with us. You know, Lent, last 6 weeks, don't worry about how much time you're taking with it. I don't care if you take 5 minutes with it. I'm really serious. Take 5 minutes and do something if you've not. Recall a time when you really did experience God's love and acceptance for real. Like that mom with her little boys. You're okay the way you are. And let that soak into you. Let it soak in. And then let that other little ingredient that Abram discovered, that bit of trust, also come. I can trust this, that it's real, that God is real. God really is at work in our lives. Let the chatter, all the stuff that we start saying, let that go. Just stay right there. God is in your life. God has been in your life. God will be in your life. Amen.